Okay. Why do I have no students here in person in this class? Annoying. Oh. Where is everybody? What the heck?
Hi.
Hi. Where is everybody?
Hello.
Hi. Oh, here comes Alexis.
Yeah, Miss McClellan.
Hi. How's it going?
I have a slight odd question.
Okay.
Do you know a Rachel McClellan?
Hey, Rachel McClellan. Rachel. I don't think so.
That's crazy. My mom, she has this patient and she thought it was you because she pulled out her driver's license and she was like, this looks really familiar from my daughter's Zoom calls.
Weird. She looks like me too?
Yeah, like the the brunette hair and the brown eyes and then everything like that.
Yeah,
But
I don't really know any other McClellans like in the area, except for, well, that was between the times that you were at Allegro, but we had another teacher who was Mr. McClellan. It was very weird.
oh no.
Although, what if it's his wife? I'm just gonna check real quick at his Facebook and see if that's.
Oh, you said, you know what? Now I'm curious.
I have no idea what his wife's name is, but I know that he is married. Come on, man, where's your wife? I mean, you said happy 75th birthday to Dolly Parton, which is important. Who is your wife?
Shouldn't on Facebook it should be like in a marital status with?
Yeah, it should be, but his is not. It just says married. Oh, here's what I'm gonna do. Oh, his friends are private. Okay, see. I see.
Me and Miss
Now,
McMullen go.
her name is Loida.
It's 11 o'clock.
Thank you. Weird. All right, who are we missing? We have a few people.
Alyssa.
Alyssa is here.
No, she's missing. She hasn't said anything to me all class, and she's not there.
Alexis, I am here.
Stop it. Just because you unmute once doesn't mean you're here. Where's Kat? Let me say hi to my beautiful.
We don't have Genesis. We don't have Zane.
She's
We
not
don't
your beautiful. She's my beautiful. Excuse you.
I can legitimately fight you on this.
All right, I just marked these people absent. I'm going to give them a second because sometimes they'll show up as soon as I mark them absent, which is fun.
Oh my god, tapestry, Miss McClellan. You want to see it? Very nice. I feel like I'm ascending. Like, I actually think I'm dead every time I wake up now. It's kind of bad. Oh, wait, there's titties. There are nude people on the tapestry.
Okay.
You really just did that.
Notice it's
I forgot.
so far.
Okay. What's the bad part?
You got that one on the recording, Miss McCullen.
I do. If I knew how to.
Hi, admin.
If I knew how to edit it, I would, but I don't. All right, we have Zane. We don't have Randall or Genesis.
I just want y'all to know that I have a blanket hoodie and it's so comfy.
That
It's
book.
inside out, you you dummy.
Okay, but it's comfy this way too.
You said I want to get my shirt
there.
dirty, and I don't care about any gift that Kat gives me because I'm not going to take care of it. I'm just going to use it until it breaks. Yeah.
You look like a polar bear. I'm very jealous.
Miss McClellan likes it. Thank you.
I do. I love cozy stuff. I got my blanket in my lap right now.
My cat's having a moment.
So what we need to do today is to finish reading chapter 4, which we started the other day. It is one of the longer chapters. I don't know where any of my physical copies of this freaking book are. There was a box of books, a gigantic box of books that went missing like shortly before school started this year. And I thought Mr. Cheek was going to hunt it down, and he never did. And I suspect that my Ethan Fromes are in there. I have one at home, but that's not, I'll forget it. I won't bring it. Look at that little kitty. Guys, I dreamed last night that I went to Disney World, but it was just a dream. And I'm very sad about it. I'd give anything to go. I'd give anything to go, but not wear a mask. But alas, that is not to be. Okay, so we picked up, or we're going to pick up today on column-wise, page 33, PDF-wise, page 17, and I will share my screen with y'all in just a minute. But we learned a bit about why Ethan and his wife got married in the first place. And, you know, we kind of talked about the fact that maybe he didn't ever love her really, but he felt like he needed her, and he felt like she was really there for him when his mom was sick. She was very good at taking care of things. She was good at taking care of his mom, and then just like taking care of household things that would never have crossed his mind. And he appreciated how smart she was, how smart and competent, and he was really sort of proud to be with her, but he had envisioned this whole life for them that was a lot bigger than the life they have wound up living, which I'm sure has a lot to do with her health or lack thereof. She can't do too much. But we are going to continue reading, and I think this is the chapter, I think. when he and Maddie are gonna be alone together. Where did it just go? Oh my god. All right, I'm a share. This was where we left off, and we're still going to learn a little bit more about Xena, like back in the day, but then it'll lead up to this stuff. Would anyone like to read today?
Yes, I do.
We are starting at Xena's native village.
Okay. Xena's native village was slightly larger and nearer to the railway than Starkfield, and she had let her husband see from the first that life on an isolated farm was not what she had expected when she married. But purchasers were slow in coming, and while he waited for them, Ethan learned the impossibility of transplanting her. She chose to look down on Starkfield, but she could not have lived in a place which looked down on her. Even Bettsbridge or Shadd's Falls would not have been sufficiently aware of her. And in the greater cities which attracted Ethan, she would have suffered a complete loss of identity. And within a year of their marriage, she developed the sickliness which had since made her notable, even in a community rich in pathological instances. When she came to take care of his mother, she had seemed to Ethan like the very genius of health, but he soon saw that her skill as a nurse had been acquired by the absorbed observation of her own symptoms. Then she too fell silent. Perhaps it was the inevitable effect of life on the farm, or perhaps, as she sometimes said, it was because Ethan never listened. The charge was not wholly unfounded. When she spoke, it was only to complain, and to complain of things not in his power to remedy, and to check a tendency to impatient retort. He had first formed the habit of not answering her, and finally of thinking of other things while she talked of late. However, since he had reasons for observing her more closely, her silence had begun to trouble him. He recalled his mother growing taciturnity, and wondered if Xena were also turning queer. Women, did he knew. Xena, who had at her fingers ends the pathological chart of the whole region, had cited many cases of the kind while she was nursing his mother, and he himself knew of a certain lonely farmhouses in the neighborhood where stricken creatures pined, and of others where sudden tragedy had come of their presence. At times, looking at Zena's shut face, he felt the chill of such forebodings. At other times, her silence seemed deliberately assumed to conceal far-reaching intentions, mysterious conclusions drawn from suspicions and resentments impossible to guess. The supposition was even more disturbing than the other, and it was the one which had come to him the night before, where he had seen her standing in the kitchen door. Now her departure for Bettsbridge had once more eased his mind, and all his thoughts were on the prospect of his evening with Maddie. Only one thing weighed on him, and that was having told Xena that he was to receive cash for the lumber. He foresaw so clearly the consequences of this imprudence that with a considerable reluctance he decided to ask Andrew Hale for a small advance on his load.
Okay, so Xena, I feel like we learn a little bit more about her, and it makes me like her less. Like I do feel, sort of sorry for her for being as sickly as she is, and also because her husband is into somebody else, and she kind of knows that. Hey, Randall's not here. No, I don't know where he's at. But one of the reasons that she moved there, or that she wanted to stay with him in the beginning, was not because she loved him, but because in a small town like Starkfield, she is well known primarily just because she's so sick all the time. People are like, oh, Xena, she's that sickly old lady. She's not even an old lady, she's like 35, but she said that even if she moved to Bettsbridge or Shadd's Falls, which like we've never heard of these towns, they're not like big cities or anything, but even those, would have been too big and people would not have known her, and she would rather be like a big fish in a small pond. And while I understand that, like there is something to be said for feeling like you're a big fish in a small pond. Um, I feel like she's really kind of holding back both herself and Ethan and not allowing him to have the kind of life that he would like to have just because she wants people to know who she is. I feel like that's kind of selfish. I don't know. That's just me. Okay, so
We're humans. We're selfish creatures.
we are selfish creatures.
But you don't need to hold nobody back because you want to be known as the sick lady. Like, why would you want to be known as that?
That's
So,
exactly it.
like,
That's not even something good to be known for.
Yeah. Like, she could be known for anything and you want to be sick, so you decide to hold your husband, whom you didn't even like, and you know he didn't like you. You decide to hold both of y'all back.
Yeah. And like the reason that she knows all this stuff and is able to be a good nurse is because she spent so much time like on her own symptoms. And genuinely, like, I think she's probably a little bit of a hypochondriac. She doesn't seem that sick. Like, she looks kind of old and frail, but she seems to be pretty on top of things. So I think some of it is probably either like hypochondria or a cry for attention or a combination of those things.
It sounds like a self-diagnosis, to be honest. Like, I don't think she's actually like sick.
Yeah, I mean,
like
it
she's
never says
faking it.
what's wrong with her. Just like she's in pain, she doesn't feel well, but what's wrong with her? I don't know.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna have Ethan kind of deal with the consequences of lying about getting this cash for the lumber that isn't even a thing, but it's why he said he had to stay home. So he's got to figure that out. We can continue.
When Ethan drove into Hale's yard, the builder was just getting out of his sleigh. "Hello, Eth," he said. "This comes handy." Andrew Hale was a ruddy man with a big gray mustache and a stubby double chin unconstrained by a collar. But his scrupulously clean shirt was always fastened by a small diamond stud. This display of opulence was misleading, for though he did a fairly good business, it was known that his easygoing habits and the demands of his large family frequently kept him what Starkfield called behind. He was an old friend to Ethan's, and his house one of the few to which Zena occasionally went, drawn there by the fact that Mrs. Hale in her youth had done more doctoring than any other woman in Starkfield, and was still a recognized authority on symptoms and treatment. Hale went up to the Greys and patted their sweating flanks. "Well, sir," he said, "you keep them too as if they were pets." Ethan set about unloading the logs, and when he had finished his job, he pushed open the glazed door of the shed, which the builder used as his office. Hale sat with his feet up on the stove, his back propped against a battered desk strewn with the papers. The place, like the man, was warm, genial,
Like friendly.
genial and untidy.
I am gonna move on, but I just wrote down. I noticed the gray horses. I don't know that that's necessarily significant, but I want to keep track of the uses of color.
"Sit right down and thaw out," he greeted Ethan. The latter did not know how to begin, but at length he managed to bring out his request for an advance of $50. The blood rushed to his thin skin under the sting of Hale's astonishment. It was the builder's custom to pay at the end of the 3 months, and there was no precedent between the two men for a cash settlement. Ethan felt that if he had pleaded an urgent need, Hale might have made shift to pay him, but pride and an instinctive prudence kept him from resorting to this argument. After his father's death, it had taken time to get his head above water, and he did not want Andrew Hale or anyone else in Starkfield to think he was going under again. Besides, he hated lying. If he wanted the money, he wanted it, and it was nobody's business to ask why. He therefore made his demand with the awkwardness of a proud man who will not admit to himself that he is stooping, and he was not much surprised at Hale's refusal. The builder refused genially, as he did everything else. He treated the matter as something in the nature of a practical joke, and wanted to know if Ethan meditated buying a grand piano or adding a cupola to his house. offering in the latter case to give his services free of cost. Ethan's arts were soon exhausted after an embarrassed pause, he wished Hale a good day and opened the door of the office. As he passed out, the builder suddenly called after him, "See here, you ain't in a tight place, are you?" "Not a bit," Ethan's surprise retorted before his reason had time to intervene. "Well, that's good, because I am, a shade. Fact is, I was going to ask you to give me a little extra time on the payment. Business is pretty slack to begin with, and then I'm fixing up a little house for Ned and Ruth when they're married. I'm glad to do it for him, but it costs." His looks appealed to Ethan for sympathy. "The young people like things nice. You know how it is for yourself. It's not so long ago since you fixed up your own place for Zena." Ethan left the Grays and Hale's stable and went about some other business in the village. As he walked away, the builder's last phrase lingered in his ears and reflected grimly that his 7 years with Zena seemed to Starkfield not so long.
I think that last sentence is really interesting. They've only been married for 7 years, or maybe they've been married a little bit longer, but I don't think so. I think he would have fixed up his house like when he married Zena and she moved in. And 7 years is really like not that long to be married. But his whole thing is like, wow, it seems like an eternity. I can't believe anybody would consider these past 7 years to be not that long. But Ethan is in kind of a predicament here because he was sort of counting on this advance to make up for the fact that he said he was going to get cash, and now that's not an option. In fact, the guy he was going to get it from is like, "Ooh, I'm really skint right now, and I don't think that I was going to ask you for extra time to pay you." So Ethan's not going to get any money. He might even be out some money, and he's going to have a hard time figuring out like what the heck to say to Xena to cover his tracks on that one.
The afternoon was drawing to an end, and here and there a lighted pane spangled the cold gray dusk and made the snow look whiter. The bitter weather had driven everyone indoors, and Ethan had the long rural street to himself. Suddenly he heard the brisk play of sleigh bells, and a cutter passed him, drawn by a free-going horse. Ethan recognized Michael Eady's roan colt, and young Dennis Eady in a handsome new fur cap leaned forward and waved a greeting. "Hello, Eth," he shouted and spun on. The cutter was going in the direction of the Frome farm, and Ethan's heart contracted as he listened to the dwindling bells. What more likely than that Dennis Eady had heard of Zena's departure for Bettsbridge and was profiting by the opportunity to spend an hour with Maddie. Ethan was ashamed of the storm of jealousy in his breast. It seemed unworthy for the girl that his thoughts of her should be so violent. He walked down the church corner and entered the shade of the Varnum spaces where he had stood the night before. As he passed in the gloom, he saw an indistinct outline just ahead of him. At his approach, it melted for an instant into two separate shapes and then conjoined again, and he heard a kiss and a half-laughing "oh," provoked by the discovery of his presence. Again, the outline hastily disunited, and the Varnum gate slammed on one half, while the other hurried on ahead of him. Ethan smiled at the discomfiture
Mhm.
he had caused. What did it matter to Ned Hale and Ruth Varnum if they were caught kissing each other? Everybody in Starkfield knew they were engaged. It pleased Ethan to have surprised a pair of lovers on the spot where he and Maddie had stood with such a thirst for each other in their hearts, but he felt a pang at the thought that these two need not hide their happiness. He fetched the Grays from Hale's stable and started on his long climb back to the farm. The cold was less sharp than earlier in the day, and a thick, fleecy sky threatened snow for the morrow. Here and there, a star pricked through, showing behind it a deep well of blue. In an hour or two, the moon would push over the ridge behind the farm, burn a gold-edged rent in the clouds, and then be swallowed by them. A mournful peace hung on the fields as though they felt the relaxing grasp of the cold and stretched themselves in their long winter sleep. Ethan's ears were alert for the jingle of sleigh bells, but not a sound broke the silence of the lonely road. As he drew near the farm, he saw through the thin screen of larches at the gate a light twinkling in the house above him. She's up in her room, he said to himself, fixing herself up for supper. And he remembered Zena's sarcastic stare when Maddie, on the evening of her arrival, had come down to supper with smooth hair and a ribbon at her neck. He passed by the graves on the knoll and turned his head to glance at one of the older headstones, which had interested him deeply as a boy because it bore his name. Scared to the memory of Ethan Frome and Endurance, his wife, who dwelled together in peace for 50 years.
So I just wanted to point out, like, that's not his grave. Obviously, he's not dead, but just like living in such a small town where like families tend to live for generations and generations, this would have been like some relative of his. And, you know, when he was young, he thought, well, that's kind of cool. This Ethan Frome and his wife, they dwelled together in peace for 50 years. But now that might seem like not as great a thing because he's only been with her for 7 years and he's already wishing she was dead. I don't know if he's gonna make it 50. That's a lot. Let's see.
That gold thing up on the last page.
Yeah,
Gold.
the gold edge rent in clouds. Before we leave today, Jenny, remind me to fix your attendance. This back here. We can keep on going though.
He used to think that 50 years sounded like, oh, that does not smell good. Okay, oh, it's in my mouth. Uncle Peary, what did you spray? Oh, that's
Like elf with
awful.
fruit
It's
spray.
like all, oh. Okay, oh, okay. Hold on, I'm sorry.
Okay.
He used to think that 50 years sounded like a long time to live together, but now it seemed to him that they might pass in a flash. Then, with a sudden dart of irony, he wondered if, when their turn came, the same epitaph would be written over him and Zena. Oh, okay. He opened the barn door and craned his head into the obscurity, half fearing to discover Dennis Edie's roan colt in the stall beside the sorrel. But the old horse was there alone, mumbling his crib with toothless jaws, and Ethan whistled cheerfully while he bedded down the grays and shook an extra measure of oats into their mangers. He was not a tuneful throat. His was not a tuneful throat, but harsh melodies burst from it as he locked the barn and sprang up the hill to the house. He reached the kitchen porch and turned the door handle, but the door did not yield to his touch. Startled at finding it was locked, he rattled the handle violently. Then he reflected that Maddie was alone and that it was natural she should barricade herself at nightfall. He stood in the darkness, expecting to hear her step. It did not come, and after vainly straining his ears, he called out in a voice that shook with joy. "Hello, Matt." Silence answered, but in a minute or two, he caught a sound on the stairs and saw a line of light about the doorframe as he had seen the night before. So strange with the precision with which the incidents of
I'm trying. There we go.
the previous evening were repeating themselves, that he half expected when he heard the key turn and see his wife before him on the threshold. But the door opened and Maddie faced him. She stood just as Zena had stood, a lifted lamp in her hand against the black background of the kitchen. She held the light at the same level, and it drew out with the same distinctness of her slim young throat and the brown wrist no bigger than a child's. Then, striking upward, it threw a lustrous fleck on her lips, edged her eyes with velvet shade, and laid a milky whiteness above the black curve of her brows. She wore her usual dress of darkish stuff, and there was no bow at her neck, but through her hair she had run a streak of crimson ribbon. This tribute to the unusual transformed and glorified her. She seemed to Ethan taller, fuller, and more womanly in shape and motion. She stood aside, smiling silently while he entered, and then moved away from him with something soft and flowing in her gait. She had set the lamp on the table, and he saw that it was carefully laid for supper with fresh doughnuts, stewed blueberries, and his favorite pickles in a dish of gay red glass. A bright fire glowed in the stove, and the cat lay stretched before it, watching the table with a drowsy eye. Ethan was suffocating.
Because we're about to get into some weird symbolism here, and I think I mentioned this a while back before we started reading this, but they're gonna have dinner together, and their dinner is blueberries and donuts and pickles. This is a weird dinner to have, and I don't think it's entirely coincidental. And I don't want to like paint a picture of something gross and weird for you guys, but there's definitely some symbolism here. If you think about pickles and the shape that they are.
Okay, Teach, if you're gonna do the whole, hey, I'm gonna just try to childish, I'll say it for you.
Go
Think
ahead.
of the pickle shape in the donut. That's all you need. And the
Real ones
blueberry.
know what you're talking about. It's good.
You're like, I'm gonna say it for you. And you
Miss
said
Miss
exactly what I said.
McClellan, Miss McClellan, if we're really gonna be like this, let's just be blunt about it. Okay, everybody, they're talking about sex. Okay,
Yeah.
we're
Real
they're
ones know
talking
what you're
about
talking
doing the
about.
dirty. It's okay.
Hey,
We've all heard of it. We're not gonna act like it's something brand new to all of us, because I know for good measure, I could bet you a dime to a dollar, all y'all are nasty. Don't play with me. I know for a fact. Don't play with me. So
I
we're
know.
not gonna act like this is something brand new. Okay. We're gonna continue with this. We are
All right.
17, 16, 18, all of us, we can do this.
It's
Okay.
yes, and it's not something like we're not just being nasty. Like this is intentional. That's a super weird dinner for them to have, and there's obviously a reason for that. And you know, in the absence of being able to do what they really want to do, food substitutes.
Yo,
Um,
Ethan finna get it.
No,
he certainly wants to. There's also some stuff with a cat coming up, and we use words now for things that are not what they are. And you'll see. I don't think that
okay.
has anything
Miss
to do
McClellan,
with the symbolism.
the more we talk about this, the more awkward it becomes. Please,
It's
we
only
gotta
awkward if you make it awkward. Are you
I don't
kidding?
But
feel
you're
like this is
making it
awkward. This is
awkward,
fun.
Miss McClellan. You keep trying to like go over it. We can't
I
go
don't
over
feel awkward, but I don't
Hey.
want you guys to feel awkward.
it. Okay, I'm ready. Is everybody ready for this? Because it's obviously going to be weird, according to Miss McClellan.
Man, this is gonna be the best one night stand story I ever read. Now let's go.
See, and that's what makes it weird.
That's what makes
Please. Okay. Ethan was suffocated with a sense of well-being. He went out into the passage to hang up his coat and pull off his wet boots. When he came back, Maddie had set the teapot up. Oh, okay. Maddie had set the teapot on the table, and the cat was rubbing itself persuasively against her ankles. Okay. Why, puss, I nearly tripped over you, she cried, laughter sparkling through her lashes. Again, Ethan felt a sudden twinge of jealousy. Could it be his coming that gave her such a kindled face? Well, Matt, any visitors? He threw off, stooping down carelessly to examine the fastening of the stove. She nodded and laughed. Yes, one, and he felt a blackness settling on his brow. Who was that? He questioned, raising himself up to slant glance at her beneath his scowl. Her eyes danced with malice. Why, Jonathan Powell. He came in after he got back and asked for a drop of coffee before he went down home. The blackness lifted and light flooded Ethan's brain. That all? Well, I hope you made out to let him have it. And after a pause, he felt it right to add, I suppose he got Zena over to the flats all right? Oh, yes, in plenty of time. The name threw a chill between them, and they stood a moment looking sideways at each other before Maddie said with a shy laugh, I guess it's about time for supper. They drew their seats up to the table, and the cat, unbidden, jumped between them into Zena's empty chair. Oh, puss, said Maddie, and they laughed again. Ethan, a moment earlier, had felt himself on the brink of eloquence, but the mention of Zena had paralyzed him. Maddie seemed to feel the contagion of his embarrassment and sat with the downcast lids, sipping her tea while he feigned an insatiable appetite for donuts and sweet pickles. At last, after casting about for an effective opening, he had a long gulp of tea and cleared his throat and said, looks as if there'd be more snow. She feigned great interest. Is that so? Do you suppose it'll interfere with Zena's getting back? She flushed red as a question escaped her and hastily set the cup down she was lifting. Ethan reached over for another helping of pickles. You can never tell this time of year. It drifts so bad on the flats. The name had benumbed him again, and once more he felt as if Xena were in the room between them. "Oh, puss, you're too greedy," Maddie cried. The cat, unnoticed, had crept up on muffled paws from Xena's seat to the table and was stealthily elongating its body in the direction of the milk jug, which stood between Ethan and Maddie. The two leaned forward at the same moment, and their hands met on the handle of the jug. Aw. Maddie's hands was underneath, and Ethan kept his clasp on it for a moment longer than was necessary. The cat, profiting by this unusual demonstration, tried to effect an unnoticed retreat, and in doing so backed the pickle into the pickle dish, which fell onto the floor with a crash. Maddie, in an instant, had sprung from her chair and was down on her knees by the fragments. "Oh, Ethan, it's all to pieces. What will Xena say?"
This is a big deal, just for the record. Like, the fact that this pickle dish has been broken is probably symbolic, and we'll find out more about why it might be symbolic, but kind of it spoils their evening to a certain degree, because they're more or less like playing house together, and they have this moment of like, my hands on your hands, like when you both reach for the popcorn at the same time, like, oh. And
Which that only a Hollywood thing.
Well,
it doesn't happen.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to dream. You know what I mean? But this time his courage was up. Well, she'll have to say it to the cat anyway, he rejoined with a laugh, kneeling down at Maddie's side to scrape up the swimming pickles. She lifted stricken eyes at him. "Yes, but you see, she never meant it should be used, and not even when there was company, and I had to get up on the stepladder to reach it down from the top shelf of the china closet where she keeps it with all her best things, and of course she'll want to know why I did it." The case was so serious that it called forth all Ethan's latent resolution. She needn't know anything about it if you keep quiet. "I'll get another just like it tomorrow. Where did it come from? I'll go to Shad's Falls for it if I have to." "Oh, you'll never get another even there. It was a wedding present. Don't you remember? It came all the way from Philadelphia from Xena's aunt that married the minister. That's why she wouldn't ever use it." "Oh, Ethan, what in the world shall I ever do?"
Okay, so let's just think about this symbolically. This red pickle dish, first of all, and we've talked about what red could represent, is a like one of a kind wedding gift. And it's probably pretty telling that Ethan didn't even remember that it was a wedding gift. He was just like, "Oh, I'll go buy another one, no big deal." They can't buy another one. It's one of a kind. They were given it at their wedding, and Xena never uses it. She puts it up on the top shelf, which is maybe also a little bit symbolic. This thing that's like representative of her marriage, she sort of tucks it away. It's just for looks. She does not put it to its actual use, which is maybe sort of representative of the way she treats her marriage. She doesn't really, they don't behave the way that a husband and wife should. They don't, they're not affectionate with each other. They don't seem to even really like each other. And while I'm sure she's proud of being like a married woman, it's more of like the name than anything else. And then the one night that Ethan has any kind of like passion, it gets shattered. So that's some pretty heavy-handed symbolism, to be honest.
She began to cry and he felt as if every one of her tears were pouring over him like burning lead. "Don't, Matt. Oh, don't, he implored her. She struggled to her feet, and he rose and followed her helplessly while she spread out the pieces of glass on the kitchen dresser. It seemed to him as if the shattered fragments of their evening lay there. "Here, give them to me," he said in a voice of sudden authority. She drew aside, instinctively obeying his tone. "Oh, Ethan, what are you going to do?" Without replying, he gathered the pieces of glass into his broad palm and walked out of the kitchen to the passage. Then he lit a candle, opened the china closet, reaching up with a long arm to the highest shelf, laid the pieces together with such accuracy of touch that a close inspection convinced him of the impossibility of detecting from below that the dish was broken. If he glued it together the next morning, months might elapse before his wife would notice what what had happened. And meanwhile, he might, after all, be able to match the dish at Shad's Falls or Betsbridge. Having satisfied himself that there was no risk of immediate discovery, he went back to the kitchen with a lighter step and found Maddie disconsolately.
Oh, wow. It just started raining pretty hard. Disconsolately.
Removing the last scraps of pickle from the floor. It's all right, Matt. Come back and finish supper, he commanded her. Completely reassured, she shone on him through tear-hung lashes, and his soul swelled with pride as he saw how his tones subdued her. She did not even ask what he had done, except when he was steering a big log down the mountain to his mill. He had never known such a thrilling sense of mastery.
I feel like that's a very silly way to end this, just because she's like, he didn't do anything. He just like set it back there in where it looked like it wasn't broken. And then he's like, I really nailed that. Like, I did such a good job. I'm such a big, strong man. He didn't do anything. He just put the pickle dish back. And you're still gonna have to like glue it back together or find a replacement or something. This is obviously a thing that Maddie is really stressed out about, because she's like, if Xena finds out, it'll be a big deal. It's not like it's her favorite thing in the world, this pickle dish, but it's representative of her marriage to her. It was a wedding gift. It's probably not something that she would want her husband and another woman to use. So I think the fact that it's broken is not so much like, oh, well, you know, it was a one of a kind or whatever. It's more like, this was my wedding gift and this is important in my marriage and you've destroyed it. So how do you guys see this working out? Do you think that she's gonna discover it? Do you think they're gonna tell her? Do you think they're gonna cover it up? What do you think?
She's gonna want to use the pickle dish for some reason. It feels like she's gonna, oh, we should use it, and then it's gonna be discovered.
Signs
Like-
point to that going, hey, she's gonna look at that pickle dish. Oh, I want to eat her for some unknown reason.
Yeah, she just magically comes back all well and everything, and wants to use the pickle dish. Like,
I know.
Yeah, and you said that was gonna be disturbing. That is just the lightest vanilla version I ever read. Heard.
I don't think I said it was gonna be disturbing.
you made it awkward, Miss McClellan. You were like, well, there's gonna be some like, no, Miss McClellan. There was barely any symbolism in there. It was weird with the cat, but that was about it.
So the thing about the cat, like, I feel like nowadays we could read more symbolism into the cat, but they didn't use that word for anything except for cats back then. So we can't really connect those dots. It's only like, it only happens for a minute, but I think it's really heavy-handed symbolism. Like, it's really obvious what they're trying to do. That hasn't always been, like, I find that that's not always the case, that like students don't always get it unless I directly point it out to them. The first time I taught this, people did not get it. So I want to be clear and make sure you know what's going on there. So I feel awkward. I don't. Okay, any thoughts, questions about this chapter? We've still got about 10 minutes left, but I don't want to move on today.
My question is, well, dang, the man tried so hard, but he failed so miserably.
He shouldn't have been trying in the first place, if we really being honest. Like,
hey, like I said, there's levels to.
I'm not trying to hear it.
Making her feel like he's a big, strong man.
That's like, come on, get it together, boo.
He's just trying to be aggressive.
All you did was put a dish back. That was it. Not that special.
And we're like, oh, she was trying to open the pickle jar. Then I can still, okay.
Like, come on, it's not that big of a deal.
But
the fact that he thought so. First off, I just want to talk about Maddie, okay? Because now I thought Maddie was gonna be the innocent one in the situation, because she dumb and she just don't know anything.
Don't say dumb.
What is she doing? Because she obviously had something set in her brain that she was just like, this gonna happen tonight. Like, what are you doing, ma'am?
No.
I can't trust Maddie anymore. I can't trust her. From now on, everything she does is gonna be suspicious to me because she shouldn't have had that in her brain if she was as dumb as we thought she was. Like, she probably does like him. And now I take back everything I said about her because she probably does like him and she probably wants to be with him. And he wants to be with her, obviously, seeing as this has happened. So
I feel about it too, that like she does want to be with him, but I think that he's jumped to a lot of conclusions because until this chapter, I don't think she'd done very much to show him that she had feelings for him. I think she's maintained some pretty like strong boundaries the whole time. The only thing she ever did was just like walk with him home, and like that was the plan all along. And I feel like she didn't really give him any indication that she had feelings for him. But
why would she feel awkward when mentioning Xena?
when
They felt awkward. He felt awkward, and she felt the awkwardness too, because they broke the dish. And whenever he mentioned her name, they both felt the same level of awkwardness. I don't like that. I
agree. I think this scene is the first time where it's really apparent that they're the same way.
What about when they walked in the house together? Didn't she like feel like she got caught too, or was that not even mentioned?
She gave him like, or he thought she gave him like a warning glance, because after he was like, oh no, I'm going to stay down here, I'm not going to come up to bed yet. And if she did give him some kind of warning glance, which we don't even know if that's really true or not, I feel like it could have just as easily been like a don't make this into a big deal kind of look. Like don't stay down here with your, like, don't avoid going to bed with your wife over this. Like, just keep her happy. Which, like, Maddie would want to keep Xena happy, because as long as Xena's happy, she's got a job there. If Xena gets tired of her, she's gonna throw Maddie out on her tuchus.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. And I'm slowly realizing like their relationship is now developing. In the beginning, the guy, I feel so bad for the idiot. Because many guys, even I did it once, we jumped the gun.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes.
Like, once we jump the gun, we screw up royally. But I feel bad for them because they're slowly realizing, oh, I actually might have feelings for this person. I'm like, now, of all times, now.
Because, like, he is finally getting some reciprocation from her, but the things that he has said and thought through the narration, like, I wish my wife was dead. I wish that Maddie and I were both dead so that we could be together in our graves forever. And like all this stuff about just being with her forever and like leaving his wife. It's just like, you don't even know for sure that she likes you back and you're doing all that. It's too much.
Again, once a guy screw up royally, we screw up royally.
Yeah, I mean, jumping the gun.
Yep, but still feel bad for the guy. Like I said, it's hard for me to justify his actions because, okay, sick wife, okay, what he's doing, wrong, I'm on that side. Till I see the side of that woman, I'm like, okay, I'm actually rooting for this dude now.
You're rooting for him?
A little, because like you said, she could be lying about being sick.
Yeah.
And she literally comes out and said, like, hey, I was lying about me being sick. I didn't want you to be home more. I'm like, that what you want?
Yeah. I don't think she's lying about being sick necessarily, because it did say she's been this way forever, like since before Ethan knew her. She was a good nurse to his mom because she was used to looking at all her own symptoms. But I do think it could be a little bit of hypochondria or just kind of like seeking attention. Some Munchausen stuff. I don't know.
I can't root for any of them. They're all terrible people.
I feel the exact same way. I can't root for any of them. I don't want him and Maddie to be together because that sucks for Xena. I don't want him to actually be with Xena because she sucks. Like, nothing. There's no win situation here.
A win situation is that they all go about their way. Xena ends up with the doctor that she's going to go see because obviously there has something had to have gone on over there. There's like no way.
I don't know how you.
And then Maddie ends up with Dennis Edie. Now, of course, most people wouldn't want to see them together, but I think that would be a better fit because he does have money and he does own some sort of property down there, or like it's coming to him. And then
he's not married.
exactly. And Ethan could go about his way and go back to school because he's still young enough to do what he wants to do and doesn't have to own the farm again. Like they just need to go their separate ways. But I can't support any of them because all three of them are terrible people, and two of them are liars. Probably three of them. We'll never know. So
Like Cece, I don't know if I'm just crazy or just insane, but honestly, I'm just rooting for either one of them. Like, okay, who's gonna get their way first?
I want if I had to like vote for somebody to win, I want Maddie to win because I can't trust her, but I'm gonna be on her side 100% because that poor girl, she doesn't know what's happening until just now that she does know what's happening, and the fact that she wants that to happen just makes her look. It makes her look bad for all the single women out here. You know what I mean?
You can't help your feelings though. You can't help who you fall for. You can just
exactly
do about it.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No,
yes.
Hold up, you two. What I mean is, you can't help what you're feeling. Yeah, I agree with that. But man, if she do like, oh, I love him because he's married, I'm like, don't do that.
Well, of course she doesn't love him because he's married. She likes him because he's smart, and I guess she thinks he's handsome. I don't know. Yeah. And he does good things, I guess. Like that's why she likes him. But
yeah, she likes to listen to him tell stories and like tell her about things she doesn't know.
Exactly.
All right, I gotta let you guys go because it's lunchtime. But
All right.
we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, bye.